And we're live. What's up, everybody? I'm back. For those who don't know, I was at Midburn last week. Midburn is Israel's Burning Man. Maybe we'll start by talking a little bit about Midburn until we start getting in some viewers, until we start getting people calling in. Let me know if you could hear me all right, if you could see me all right. I don't have my webcam again, so not the best video quality, but it looks pretty good from my vantage point. So, Jordan, I see you're saying cool music. I actually don't like the music at all. I think we're going to change it. Can someone remind me on Sunday to change the music? Unless we get 10 people in chat say keep it, then we'll keep it. We'll let the crowd decide. But to me, it's like a little too aggressive. It doesn't embody the spirit of peace. So, anyways. So before we get shouted, a shout out to our Patreon visionary members. We have Trivium Energy Pty Ltd. We have SOG Cannabis, Max Marine, Kevin Posner, Adam Becker, Maya, Kimberly, Jordan Walter, Nate Hinman, Julian Melser, and our one and only legendary member, Speedy Weedy. Speedy Weedy is a cannabis delivery company in Southern California. You could find a link to their website in the description. Check them out. They're giving us $100 a month. Greatly appreciated. And anybody who's contributing, whether you're a visionary member or just a regular Patreon member, all support is greatly appreciated. You can find a link to our Patreon and other means of donation in the description. Thank you in advance for any donation that's given. As you can see, we have like an Israeli flag right over there. Not mine, but everything's reverse on camera. But I'm in the marina in Herzliya, and it seems like someone's got an Israeli flag going. The spirit of Zion, I guess. Herzliya was named after Theodore Herzl, so I guess it's fitting. Anyways, Mariam Ahmed goes, I think it gives more of a gym vibe. I agree with you. It's not what we're looking for. Garefoot goes, the music is horrible. Yep, I agree. Okay, what else do we got? Nir says, I agree. It's not a peace vibe. Daniel goes, keep it. Okay, cool. Yeah, the music's gone. You'll never hear it again, okay? Ever. All right, so before we get started, so we're doing a call-in show today. Anybody can call in, hop on. Each guest will have around 5 minutes, just so we have time for everybody. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. If you want to join the stream, you click it, and then eventually I will let you on. Huh. Okay, this isn't streaming to Facebook today. I just realized. All good. So, Midburn. In general, burns, many would call it a festival, but it's different than a regular festival. So you have in the United States Burning Man, which is the original burn, and then you have what they call regional burns, which are different countries cooperating with Burning Man to bring a burn to their country. So the second biggest burn in the world after Burning Man is Africa Burn in South Africa. The third biggest is Midburn here in Israel. What makes it different than other festivals is that generally at a festival or an event, the producers create all the content, right? They'll build the stages, they'll bring the art, they'll bring the artists. At Burns, it's different. Here, it's the people are bringing the content. The way it works is, first, individuals, there's a principle of gifting. Every individual needs to come in the spirit of giving something to the community. So imagine at Burning Man, you have 70,000 people there, everyone in the spirit of giving. Imagine just the vibe that can create. But in addition to that, people group together into camps. And a camp is essentially like a big tent structure that has a theme. And that camp is meant to provide content throughout the week. It's a full 6 days in the desert. And the themed camp range, they vary. You could have like a camp that's doing yoga a few times a day. You could have like a Mexican themed camp that's going to do tacos and margaritas for a few hours a day. A Wild Wild West camp that's going to have like an open bar for a few hours a day. There's a camp that just has hammocks up where you could go and rest in a hammock throughout the day. What else? There was an Israel-Palestine camp that I hung out with. I actually went in there not knowing anybody, but as I started talking to people there, I saw that I had some Facebook friends that I've known for a long time that I met there. I made some great connections. what are some other camps? There's like a Viking themed camp that does Viking parties. And then in addition to that, there's dozens of art installations all over the desert that you go from one to the other. And there's no money there, right? So everything the camps give is for free. So you just walk around all day, all night. There's 24 hours a day of multiple things going on, and you could just go to one thing to another, and it's all for free. So you pay entrance to get into Burning Man, but then you have a week of free content, more content than any single individual can consume. You could be there for a month and not even experience it all. So it's truly, I would even call it a life-changing experience. It's not easy, right? Being in the desert for a week isn't easy, but I do suggest everybody give it a shot because, it's amazing to see how people can come together and build something so magnificent in just a week's time and then break it all apart. It's also interesting how it kind of has like a similar model to capitalism in the sense that it's a distributed means of production, right? So like, let's talk about like communism in the classical sense where, actually, I don't want to say in the classical sense, but let's talk about like a Soviet style communism where the state owns the means of production. So whether it's cars or all manufacturing, healthcare, whatever it is, the state provides that. And when the state is providing everything, they're limited in how much innovation they can create. It's just one body creating everything. Capitalism, essentially what it does is it says, no, it's not going to be the state producing, it's going to be people, and people will compete to produce, and then you're going to have millions of people competing with one another, and you're meant to achieve better results. So Burning Man has a very similar spirit in the sense that it's a distributed means of production. Anybody can contribute and build. The difference here is capitalism is generally focused on profit, right? That's the motive in a capitalist system. It's to gain more profit. People are competing with one another to be more profitable. Burning Man's different. It's not about profit. It's about creativity. It's about giving back to the community. So you have a similar model to capitalism where people are competing with one another and the means of production is distributed, but the competition is not for profit. It's for creation, imagination. So it creates for something truly spectacular, truly spectacular. And with that, I think we'll end our Burning Man conversation. If people have specific questions about it, then I'd be happy to answer. But we could get the show on the road. Gerfoot asks, is there a Lubavitch tefillin spot? Yeah, actually, there is a Chabad camp where you could go put on tefillin and do Shabbat dinner. There's a few Shabbat dinners throughout Midburn that you could go to. There's multiple sound camps with different stages and stuff. I wish I had a list of the camps because it really is endless, the stuff you could do. There's also like 18 plus camps that are like sex positive stuff, sex workshops, even an orgy dome, right? So there's like everything, but there's also kids camps for kids. So it's really across the spectrum of things to do. You don't need to go party. You could kind of stay in your own little zone and do yoga workshops, keep it chill, or you could go dance for hours at a time. Freedom of expression is certainly one of the principles. Learn, think you're so energized. Says I'm so energized talking about that's beautiful. Yeah, I think I get excited talking about it because it truly is of human cooperation, and every time I go, I come back feeling truly inspired. Anyway, so today we're just gonna go with the flow. People can come on, ask questions, challenge me, share feedback, whatever they want. Yeah, we'll go with the flow. I see we have Nir Rofe in the waiting room, so yeah, let's Nir, you ready to come on? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome. Brother.
Hola, amigo. What's up?
Wait, hold up. I'm not hearing you. I had this issue the other day. Hold on, I got to change something in my settings. Yeah, Google is giving me problems. Hold on. Private security system. Manage your Google account. Well, this is annoying. All right, you know what we're gonna do? Nir, give me a minute. I'm just gonna go through Brave browser. Honestly, fuck Google Chrome anyways. I shouldn't be supporting them. I keep making the same mistake by doing things through Google. All right, I'm going to disappear. I'll be back in a moment.
Hey guys, didn't expect to be alone on the stream.
Back in a moment. You see? There we go. Honestly,
What's up?
it seems like the video quality is better now. Or is that just me? Maybe it's just me.
What are you on Firefox right now?
No, I'm on Brave browser. It's like a blockchain-based browser. So I'm very much enjoy blockchain-based applications.
Can you explain more about BBS? I didn't understand what's going on over there.
Yeah, sure. So BBS is also a blockchain-based social media platform. It's meant to be a Reddit competitor, but the scope is really to take it beyond Reddit and be just to be a host for live streaming and all different, really combine all sorts of different social media platforms into one. But it being built utilizing blockchain technology has, I would say, two main advantages. One, that it's less censorship resistant, so the BBS team can't censor the content. The censorship is done by the community admins. There are other layers of accountability if community admins aren't doing their work, but it doesn't put that power in the hands of the BBS team. It puts it in the hand of the community admins. In addition to that, because BBS has a token, BBS token, you have a token economy that is built into the ecosystem, and essentially people can earn money for building and managing communities. They can earn money for creating posts. So all this time we spend on social media, posting, speaking, that's now monetized, right? You can now earn money to do that. And disclaimer, I work for BBS, right? That's BBS pays my salary. It's my day job. Obviously my dream is to be able to do Sulha one day full-time, but I do love working for BBS. I think it's an awesome project, and I do want to gain traction in the Sulha BBS. It's been hard. You know, we have 1,400 community members on Discord, but Discord is just different. It's like an instant message platform, and this is more similar to Reddit. So it's harder to bring people here, but I would like for everybody to come in and make one post a day, share your thoughts. I'm very active there, so if you ever want to ask me a question, you always can there. Here, I just shared it in the description. Can everyone just go to BBS now and create an account? Go to Sulha. This is not instead of Discord. It's really a different solution. Discord is for instant messages. This is more for posts. Also, within the Sulha BBS, you can create boards. A board is a subcategory, and anyone can create a board, and they actually earn money if people are posting on their board. So, for example, in Discord, you know, we have the cringe take repository. So if somebody wants, they could create a cringe take repository on Sulha BBS, and any cringe take, they're going to earn money off the post made on that board. We actually already have a cringe take on Sulha BBS, so that's taken. But feel free to create any board you want. Nir, you could even do Ivrit, for example, Hebrew, and do Hebrew posts, for example. You could manage that board, invite people in, and just be part of this awesome token economy. And it kind of turns a hobby into, it allows us to earn for something we're passionate about, which is really a dream come true for humanity, right? If we could turn our social media time into earnings, I mean, imagine that. Gerford goes.
We can turn our passion into earnings. That's the key of life,
True.
right? It's what everyone is searching for.
Yep, 100%.
To create incomes from something you're passionate about.
Yep, exactly. Well, that's really what I'm attempting to do here with the YouTube channel. It's a slow and steady process, but yeah, that's what we're hoping to do. Gerfoot, I see you say sounds fishy. I mean, I think blockchain in general is confusing to many people, and it doesn't always seem to make sense. So that might be where your feeling of fishiness may come from. But I could assure you it's all entirely legit and makes perfect sense. If you have a specific question about like what you think doesn't make sense, I'd be happy to elaborate. But the token economics, it all works. It's sound. I, for example, have just been using the platform since I started working the past few months and already have earned like $120, which is not, I can't live off that, but $120, why not? And the thing is, you earn the money and then you convert it into BBS token, which can increase in price. So let's say BBS does like a 10x over the next few years. That 120 is actually 1,200. If it does a 100x, which it could, it's starting with a very low market cap, then that's already 12,000. So very cool platform. The token economics is sound. Yeah, happy to answer more questions about it, or we could talk about some IP stuff, Israel-Palestine. I know there's a lot of talk about critical race theory and wokeness right now in the United States. Oh, and look, we have now, I see in the chat, we have Eyal Herzog, who's actually the founder of BBS, and my boss and my friend. Eyal, I hope you're pleased with my explanation. But yeah, Eyal's a great guy. We actually go way back. But around 6 months ago, he gave me a call and asked me to join the family, and since then we've been working together again. So it's been a great time.
Let me ask you something, Adar.
Yep.
I've asked it on the BBS stream, but let's talk about it live. So both of us, or basically when it comes to the conflict, basically both of us are solution agnostics, I will say, which means for me, let me come back. I hear my wife calling me.
Yeah, all good. Family first. Daniel, I see you're here. You want to hop on in the meantime? Yep. Okay. What's up, Daniel? How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. Where are you calling in from?
Malta.
Malta. Okay, cool. I think you might be our only Maltan. Is it a Maltan? Is that what Maltese? My bad. You're our only Maltese supporter from what I know, but it's cool. It's cool to have followers from all around the world.
Yeah.
It's also cool seeing somebody from Malta have their name in Hebrew and Arabic, so that's kind of cool. Oh wait, I seen yours back. I'll keep you on stream. I'm gonna keep you on, Daniel. But let's finish the flow with Nir, and then you could chime in.
Daniel is one of my best Facebook friends, by the way.
Cool. Did you guys meet? Did you guys meet through Sulha?
No, we met through a Facebook group. Israelis and Palestinians want peace, something like that. And then we met on Sulha.
Cool. Very nice.
Anyway, when it comes to being solution agnostic, that means to me, like Joseph Cohen said once, I don't care if we have 1 state, 2 state, 29 states. I just want peace. Well, I agree with that assumption, but the problem is, and I have my answer. I'd like to hear yours. How can you solve a problem which you don't care what the solution is going to be?
Sure. So I think it's a great question. I think firstly, it's important to understand that there's a lot that needs to be done regardless of what the solution is. So our main focus at Sulha is really reconciliation. It's about both sides better understanding each other's narratives and coming together towards common ground. So regardless if we have a 2 states, federation, confederation, whatever it may be, the reconciliation process must happen. So there's still immense work to be done regardless of what solution we go with. Secondly, I do consider myself solution agnostic, but I don't hold all solutions to be acceptable. So for example, I think a one binational state would lead to disaster. I don't support that. I think we could maybe get there after generations of peace, but not as a starting point. I also don't, for example, I don't support Mordechai Kedar's Emirati plan. I don't think that's a just solution, for example. But there are many solutions that I do view that I do view as legitimate, and I'm very happy to highlight all of those, put them front and center, and try to get real dialogue around those solutions. So I don't think we need to be stuck on one solution, because I think we need to be honest about the fact that there's more than one good solution, and also every solution has their own set of problems. So we should just be honest about the idea that there's more than one good solution, that all solutions have problems, and that no matter what the solution is, reconciliation is needed. And that's really the focus of our channel. So I think that's how that's how we reconcile it. Is it real quick? Is it Zachariah Kerner? Is that Zach Corner? Yeah, that's our good friend Zach. He goes, "Is immense work a euphemism for never going to happen?" I mean, maybe in some cases, not in this instance. I think there's, for example, when they were building the Hoover Dam, that was immense work. It happened, right? So, some things are immense work, and we end up doing them. Other times, I agree, it may be a euphemism, but no, that's not how I mean it.
I totally agree with the assumption that the most important thing is the reconciliation right now between the two types of people, and that's what we're working on in Sipur Hikaya, as I mentioned before in the next stream. The thought of raising the next generation of peacemakers from both sides. Hopefully, we can reach more influence on the Palestinian side. That will be great. Right now, we are focusing on the Israeli side, and that is my answer. My answer to my own question. The thought of you need to think of the process instead of the solution. When you will create a better process and a better way, then the solution will be a lot easier to go through. You need to pave the way for the solution for it to be possible. That's at least my opinion.
Yep, I agree with that for sure. And Nir, I've been meaning to reach out. I very much want to launch Sulha in Hebrew and ultimately in Arabic. It's going to take time till we have both of those, but I want three YouTube channels: one for English, one for Hebrew, one for Arabic, and maybe we can discuss partnering up. We could bring Sipur Hikaya in order to do this. Me working full time and all that, I don't have capacity to start another channel now. Even just running this is hard, but I am looking to partner up with good, like-minded people to do more content in languages that are more relevant to people living on the land. So let's talk about that.
Reach out and we'll start moving the wheels.
Sure. I want to get to this question. Eyal Menashe, thanks for the question. Eyal goes, how do you determine which solutions are just and which are not? I mean, that's a good question. It really comes down to like a judgment call of the individual, and not everyone would agree with this. But I personally look at it as you have two distinct populations living on the same land. Both of our populations deserve some form of self-determination, and it's not really for the other side to say what that self-determination looks like unless their version of self-determination infringes on the rights of the other population. So we need to accept that both sides deserve self-determination. Both sides should be able to move freely throughout their land without being stopped. They should be able to self-govern. They should be able to live with security and with the ability for prosperity. Right? This is a framework we could use to see what a just solution looks like. And there's many solutions that fall, into such a framework. So that's how I like to look at it: security, freedom, the possibility for prosperity, people's right to self-govern and self-determination. Seems like a pretty standard and good framework in which we could find just solutions.
All right, guys, I gotta go. I got some work to do.
Nir, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch.
Bye.
Daniel.
Hey.
We'll get into, we've chatted a bit on Instagram and Discord. I'm happy to finally have you on here.
Thank you.
So Eyal Menashe, follow-up question. Who represents the Palestinians for the purpose of self-determination? Fatah, Hamas? I mean, this is a legit question. Palestinians are going to need to work to figure that out, and that might not be such a peaceful process. Currently, Israel has interest in maintaining the status quo, so we very much keep the PA in power through our cooperation with them. But if we were to take a step back, it's fair to say infighting would ensue, and it seems like Hamas would gain power, which probably would not lead to self-determination that is willing to compromise with the other side. So yeah, we definitely have a problem that the power structures on the Palestinian side, if left to be, are not going to lead to a government that is going to be willing to compromise and reconciliatory in their approach. How do we actually get to a place where that's the Palestinian government we're working with? I'm actually not quite sure. It's a process that will take time. I don't think Hamas is out of the question in terms of working with. I think any political organization or even terrorist group can reform. Change is a constant. Any political body being static is actually novel, right? If you look at, for example, like the Democratic and Republican parties, how drastically they've changed the past few decades, and even the past like 100 years, even more drastically. So political parties, organizations are constantly changing. So we shouldn't be too fatalistic in how we view Hamas. Like right now, where they're at, they're not a partner for peace. That's clear. Neither are the PA, for that matter. But when push comes to shove, can we create certain environmental conditions that make them a partner for peace? I believe we can. How we get there, how long that takes, I'm going to admit ignorance on this. I don't think anybody quite knows, but it's something we need to be open to. I'm gonna one more thing that Gerfoot said, because it's a good point. He goes, but Palestinians aren't interested in peace and reconciliation. Israel is neither, to be honest. It's about justice and pride for them. It's about survival and renewal for us. Correct, but this isn't mutually exclusive. Like peace and reconciliation, it's part of peace is allowing Palestinians to feel like they get a good enough deal, right? And that doesn't mean the entire land from the river to the sea, but doing something that speaks to Palestinian pride and finding a solution that speaks to security for Israelis does not contradict the need for reconciliation. I think these two concepts are essentially intertwined, right? The Palestinian need for pride is because they feel like their enemy keeps defeating them. But if we're no longer their enemy, their sense of pride changes, right? Same with security. If we reconcile and Palestinians are no longer our enemy, our need for security starts to feel different. So I don't think those two things are contradictory. I think that reconciliation changes how Palestinians feel about pride and how we feel about a security. Yeah, Daniel, what's going on? What's up? What's on your mind?
Hey, so hope you're well. So I'm curious. As we've seen with the Israel-Palestine conflict, most people who speak are either Israeli Jews or Palestinian as Muslims. I'm just wondering, like, with all the other ethnicities in Israel and Palestine, are any of their thoughts, their opinions on this whole conflict even ever mentioned or even discussed in any way?
Are you talking about minority groups that live here on the land, like the Druze population? Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I think that what part of what makes Israel and Palestine such an interesting place is the amount of diversity that exists, here on the land. And I think that all people should have a say in what the future of the land looks like. It's not just the conversation between Jewish Israelis and Palestinians. Everybody deserves a say in it. Everybody should be at the negotiating table. Every group should have some kind of representative. That's why I actually like the federation solution, because what it does is it takes a very diverse landscape and it gives people a lot of local autonomy, and the right for them to decide. What people in Tel Aviv do and what people in Jerusalem or Hebron or the Galilee do, we should all not be trying to govern each other, rather let people self-govern. So that's why I lean towards federation. Obviously, it has its own set of challenges, But I, without a doubt, do think minority groups should be part of the conversation.
I think with the one country solution, the problem is there are many Israelis that don't want their percentage as a population to drop back to 50%. And I don't know, is this like a serious issue with many Israelis?
What, for Jewish Israelis to become a minority?
Like be about only 50% of the country if the
Well, yeah.
West Bank is admitted in.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're living in a democracy, you're going to have a demographic concern. Like even the most liberal people, I mean, they don't like to admit this point, but ask like somebody living in California if they'd be happy with a few 100,000 Trump supporters moving into their county, changing the voting demographic. The same liberal that says demographic concerns are racist will be very concerned about Trump supporters moving into their neighborhood. So when you live in a democracy, you're going to care about demographics. For Jews, it's even more important because most Jews do feel that they cannot ensure their security. Oh wait, what's this comment that I brought up? Hold on, I didn't realize that comment was still up. Sorry. Most Jewish Israelis do feel having demographic control is essential to ensure their security on this land. We don't have such a great history being minorities. Even today, right? We do see that there's in many places in Europe, people fleeing to come to Israel where they feel safer. And there's no reason to think that after 100 years of conflict with the Palestinians, that everything's just going to be peachy day one, and that there's not going to be a need for some sense of vengeance or revenge. Certainly not amongst all Palestinians, but enough to make it dangerous for Jews. And I don't think this is an unwarranted paranoia. I think this is a very legitimate concern to have. And if we want to talk about like less extreme demographic issues, let's just talk about social issues. So if we look at, let's take gay rights, for example. If you poll Israelis on their views on gay rights, it's going to be vastly different than what you're going to see on the Palestinian side. If anything, you'll have the ultra-Orthodox be more aligned with Palestinians, right, on that issue. But on average, it's vastly different perspective on gay rights, on women's rights. So it also doesn't make sense that we should be in competition with one another on how you decide these rights. That's why and that's truly why I object to a one binational state where we're all competing over control over one political system, because of how very different our versions of governance and self-determination actually is. We shouldn't be competing with one another. We should be living side by side, working together, cooperating. The competition is going to create an unhealthy environment, in my opinion.
I think there's also the issue with how the media is going to portray all this. Like if the media has a large effect on this conflict, as I think we can all agree on that. I can speak even for myself. Like for many years, I have been against Israel and Jews, because the first ever media I've ever searched on this issue was from an Arab source. So the first vision of Israel, first vision of Zionism was always negative, and with that, it's not like you can.
Right. So you used to be very anti-Israel, and now you think you've become more moderate, more understanding of the perspective. That's what happened?
Yes, this past year.
So how did that change happen? Where did that come from?
I think it's either like with something simple, like I'm watching videos of people and I'm seeing them of Israelis, and they're just being normal people, and they're not like the evil people that they are portrayed on these media. You think like maybe I am being exaggerating, and maybe I should try to see their perspective on things.
Cool. Well, I'm happy you had that transformation, and it just shows the power of actually meeting people rather than just hearing stories on the news or from social media activists.
Yeah, I think
Which,
just like when I was in these groups, like with many, there were some Israelis in those groups that countered any comments against Israel, but most of them were simply just them attacking people, not like trying to have a reasonable conversation. I think it's
right,
counterintuitive as well, because you're like, well, what's the point of fighting someone if you're not willing to change their opinion? Like just calling them an idiot and that's it. It's
true,
to make you hate them more.
true. Yeah, I mean, this really speaks to what we're attempting to do here. It shows the power of change once you sit and speak to somebody rather than just hearing stories about that individual. So, you, Daniel, are very much living proof of the impact meeting someone from the other side can have. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing that.
I even got the Israeli Sudra on me.
Oh, cool. Did you get that from Rudy?
No, the one from Eliran. He had his own
Eliran. Okay, cool. Very nice. Guys, I'm going to share the link in chat if anybody wants to hop on stream. I did see another question earlier from Zachariah. By the way, for those who don't know Zach, unless the name's very familiar, but I'm making a guess here. Zachariah is Zach and Zach. You know those awesome debates. So Zachariah Kerner is the Zionist Jew who debates Zach Foster, the anti-Zionist Jew. But Zach, why is your last name spelled differently? Aren't you Korner, Korne? Why are you Kerner here? Have I been spelling your name wrong the whole time? Let me know. So Zach asked me a question. Do you see yourself as a peace activist or as an educator? Or as an educator? I know you're going to say both, but if you had to choose one, you're right. I would say both. If I had to choose one, I don't know if I can. I don't view them as so different. I think if the education you're focused on is has like a goal of positive societal change in mind, then you're by default both. But I guess if I had to choose one, I would say an activist, because not everything I do is in the form of education. So sometimes like I very much am pushing like narratives and stories. And I acknowledge that stories and narratives don't necessarily need to be extremely fact-based, right? Like our minds don't interpret facts the way it interprets stories. So I'm very happy to push reconciliatory stories that I think are helpful. Let me just give you an example. So like there's a debate. Who's the indigenous people, Israelis or Palestinians? Well, it really depends on which definition of indigeneity you're using. So like if it's really up for definition, fine, then we're both indigenous. Why do I choose that we're both indigenous? Because it makes the most sense for reconciliatory purposes, right? So the way I choose to define indigenous is with a goal in mind. It's because I want us to live here peacefully together. Again, I don't think this contradicts being an educator, but I think that it very much like speaks more to the activist side. I'll reflect on it more, but that's like off the cuff how I feel about this.
If I can say a few things before I need to leave.
Yeah, so Zach corrects that's your stage name. Okay, good to know. Zach Korner's your stage name. Fine. Yeah, Daniel, final thoughts, and then I see we have Eyal waiting in the waiting room. We'll bring Eyal on next.
I think like important when someone decides to open up to their perspective or change, it's important to realize it's not going to happen all at once. It's slowly going to change, and maybe you're slowly getting to more opinions of other people to see how the actual thoughts are. I think it's a gradual. People need to realize how changing perspective is actually more gradual and not just all of a sudden. There's also some things that, just because you change, it doesn't mean you have to agree with the other side now completely. You can still keep to your own opinions. Like, for example, I see some Israelis say that the Palestine homeland is actually Jordan, not the West Bank. For that part, I always disagree with that, because from my perspective, it's a totally different thing. I also think it's important that, when a Palestinian says that kill all Jews and stuff like that, you always have to counter that statement, because it's not going to be productive as well. I think you need to learn to realize that the side you supported for so long, you have to realize when they are wrong, and have to learn to actually like, if sometimes you might feel like a traitor if you tell them that they are wrong, but you have to, if you want to help someone with peace, you have to tell them that they are, whenever they are, doing something. The one thing that sometimes bothers me most is how I don't hate like someone for supporting Israel, but something that discourages my, like, how I changed, how many support Israel based solely on thinking that if I support Israel, I'm hurting Muslims, like those anti-Muslim people only support Israel for that fact. I think that's going to be like, there are many people who do this, and I think it's made some people think that supporting Israel is actually being Islamophobic in that way,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you point to
they
one.
don't even know that Israel has a lot of Muslims in it, and they don't even know that. I probably.
Right. Well, I think you point to one of the biggest challenges we have in peacemaking. It's that people are very zero-sum in how they view things, right? Like, you can't, like, the whole idea of being pro-Israel and Palestine, it's like, what does that mean? How could you be pro both? It's one or the other, and that's very much how our mind is, like, built. It's like black and white, with us or against us, right and wrong. We're very binary minded, and it probably has some good evolutionary benefit, because if it didn't, we probably wouldn't be like that. But it is hard to make sense of a complex world when we're so binary minded. And the work of educators and activists is to really help people move through that binary minded zero sum thinking that very much is present in these spaces. So yeah, I think that's a great point. I appreciate.
It goes more than just Israel Palestine. It can even be like with any politics, Like
it's across the board. It's across the board in politics.
Like, when another group says one thing, you might react that way. When your group says the exact same thing, you might be more supportive. It's
correct. Yeah. Yep. It's very much relevant in politics and in all ideological issues across the board. It's not exclusive to Israel-Palestine. Cool, Daniel. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I'm happy we finally got the chance to speak one-on-one.
Hopefully, maybe you see you in Malta one day.
Yeah, I have a goal to go to every country in the world, so Malta is definitely one of them. So yeah, hopefully soon.
Our language is not Italian; it's actually a Semitic language.
Oh, interesting. When you speak English, you have a slight Italian accent, so it's probably similar in how it sounds, but I'd actually want to hear more about that at some point.
It's mostly think about it as Tunisian with a bit of Italian.
Interesting. You learn something new every day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Talk soon.
Bye.
Eyal, I'm bringing you on. You ready? Hey, Eyal, what's up?
Hey, Adar. So I wanted to chat about a couple of things. I don't know what would be more interesting for you. First, so one topic would be like the direction of the channel as a whole, of the whole thing, and specifically, I wanted to be interested if are you planning to go stream on more platform, bring more audiences, Twitch and the likes. That would be one topic. The other topic we kind of started talking about earlier, I was interested in, was from a solution perspective and talking a little bit about, which solutions are just, and because specifically, I don't love all the Federation solutions. So I was wondering to hear a little bit more about it from your point of view.
Sure. So let's start with the first one. I'm very happy to talk about the direction of the channel. It's something I put a fair amount of thought into, so I'd be happy to hear your input. People are asking if Eyal is my boss. My boss's name is Eyal, and he was in the comment section, but no, this is not the same Eyal. So yeah. And Eyal, if you can, maybe it will be too hard for you to do now, but next time you come on, give yourself a profile picture. It could be anything, just so the visual effect of the stream is a little bit nicer. Okay,
got it. Sorry.
Sure. All good. So yeah, let's talk about the direction of the channel. You have like a question you want to ask or some thoughts?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So I'm an avid Twitch viewer. I love Twitch. Okay. And I've seen a few streams recently that are kind of focused around Israel-Palestine getting a lot of traction. Now, I am aware that the topic here is to get Israelis and Palestinians together, and if you're going to bring a bunch of Americans and whatnot into the mix, you might, make the conversation shift more than you want. But on the flip side, I think that if you get more viewership, you could maybe, you mentioned earlier that you're barely keeping this channel alive, right? So you might be able to, have more time invested in the channel and all. Not that, by the way, I think everything that you're doing here is amazing, and I really truly appreciate your hard work so far. So that's what my thought. Did you think to try to increase this through Twitch?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Eyal. I appreciate it. Sorry, I got distracted. There's a cat chasing a cockroach. It's hard to not get distracted by that. But so we actually do stream this already to Twitch. We stream it to Twitch, to Twitter, to Facebook, but I don't promote those other channels because it seems like most people in the demographic that are interested in this content, less of them are on Twitch. If you have ideas for how we could get like more of a Twitch market share, then I'd be very, very happy to do that. I'm not on Twitch much, but there's a few Twitch shows that I've seen, and some of the inspiration to do what we do here actually came from Twitch. So I've been inspired by Twitch and what they do. I watch some of Destiny's content. I watch it on YouTube, but I like hearing his perspective on things. I like how they sometimes will do like a 5, even 10 person roundtable session. And I've seen the Austin show where he does lover host, which is super entertaining. Like that dude's a fucking genius. No, I'm live streaming on YouTube. Yeah. Right now, live streaming on YouTube.
All bloomers here.
Huh? I grew up in America, but I'm Israeli. What about you guys? Yeah, we do conversations between Israelis and Palestinians. That's
actually I'm an Arab. If you want.
כן, ערבי ישראלי או פלסטיני ישראלי? איך אתה מזדהה? תלוי, כן. Give me a minute, stream.
לא, אני ממתין, אני מחכה, הכל טוב.
זהו, אז אם זה מעניין אתכם, קוראים לערוץ סולחה, S-U-L-H-A, סולחה. וכל הרעיון זה ישראלים ופלסטינים באים לשיחות אחד על אחד. עכשיו, אנחנו עושים את זה באנגלית כי זה השפה משותף בין ישראלים ופלסטינים. אבל הרעיון בקרוב להתחיל לעשות סולחה בעברית בין יהודים וערבים ישראלים. אז אולי תמצאו אותי ונהיה בקשר על זה, זה יכול להיות מעניין.
יכול להיות גם סוגיות מעניינות.
לגמרי.
בשביל זה אנחנו פה.
לגמרי, כן.
טוב, nice. I like you.
תרשמו S-U-L-H-A ביוטיוב, אתם תמצאו אותי. ביי חבר'ה.
So we were talking about.
Yeah, sometimes, I'm in the marina in a public place and some people get interested by what we're doing. And for some reason, there's a lot of Israeli Arabs that hang out in this area. So they were Israeli Arabs. And it's interesting. I asked if he identifies as Israeli Arab or Palestinian Israeli. And he said it depends. And we have a lot of discussion about this in our Discord. And I thought it was interesting because I think that our identities are very malleable and dependent on where we are and who we're speaking to. But it's cool. They got excited about it. Hopefully we have some new followers. And hopefully, you know, maybe they'll even come on the show at some point. So yeah.
Hey, the
Cool.
more the merrier.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the point. The more the merrier. Actually, I think where I wanted to direct you to was Aristocracy. I don't know if you've seen that channel.
No, not familiar.
So she's Israeli, but I think she was born in Israel but lives in Canada, and now she's streaming a lot of Israeli-Palestinian content, and I think that got a lot of viewership. The thing about Twitch is that this topic, it's very hard to discuss, you know, for Americans. If you've not lived this world much, it's really hard to get to the depth of it, right? Like to understand the different sects of Judaism, different like Sunni, Shia, Fatah, Hamas, you know, different political parties. And that's without, you know, talking about anything else. There's so much to talk about. This conflict is so complex, and a lot of people are interested in that. So I don't know. My 2 cents is if you could try to bring more content to American audiences, I'm sure they will bite some of it.
So, what do you think like a good strategy to actually do that? Do you think that it's worth reaching out to these people twitching Israel-Palestine content and offering to come on their show?
Collaborating, yeah, for sure, 100%.
So if you don't mind helping me out with it and maybe just giving me a few names, and depending on how much free time you have, even if you want to reach out to them and say, hey, you know, there's this guy on YouTube or he's on Twitch too, maybe you guys want to chat, as much as you could help. If you know, if your time's limited, you could just give me the names and I'll reach out, or one of our Sulha interns will reach out. So yeah, I'm very happy to do that. I think there's a lot of energy in the Twitch community, and it's been I've been wanting to break into it more. It's just, you know,
it's hard.
How do you like we have the on Twitch here. Let me share Twitch, our Twitch profile. It's actually under my name. It's not even under Sulha, but we have 4 subscribers, 4 followers, and that's from no promotion. So I guess people randomly will find the stream and come on. But 4, not much, you know. We have, like right now we have 0 people. Oh, we have one person watching on Twitch. Okay, hey.
After we talked about it.
Hey guy, whoever's there, good to see you here. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd love to break out. I mean, you know, if I look at like our vision for the channel, part of it comes down to really expanding into other platforms and way deeper into the American market. But very much, you know, I try to keep my focus oriented on like what will create the biggest impact. And I think the U.S. audience is important if I'm to make this sustainable and if I could live off of it. Yeah. But for the impact, we need to reach more Israelis and Palestinians. And that's why eventually we're going to open a Hebrew and an Arabic channel. Our viewer on Twitch, K-Town SK, commented, I gotcha. So good to see you, K-Town. There we go. So K-Town, tell your friends about us on Twitch. We're trying to. Oh, is this LearnThink? Oh, LearnThink, who just moved from YouTube to Twitch. Okay. Different name. That's funny. So yeah, tell your friends on Twitch about us for sure. Cool.
All right. So I will send in the couple names I've been thinking of. So a few more minutes, if you don't mind, to talk about
sure.
Some solution stuff like that. So actually, I feel like it's kind of funny because this channel is very like, let's get together and talk. And in some ways, I feel like I've been a little bit moved to the right, Israeli right, by the channel.
Interesting.
And it's because I heard some Palestinian opinions, which were a little bit hard to swallow.
I've heard other people have a similar experience to you. So
yeah. But that's kind of, but that's good because it makes you think, right? It made me think. And my thought was something like this. We just discussed I sent a few comments earlier about, you know, who do you agree or not agree with? So you mentioned if solution is just, you will consider it, right? And in that way, I think you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it per se, but it sounds sometimes like you do prefer federation or confederation over 2-state solution. Is that right?
Yeah, because I think if you look at what the populations want, the majority of Palestinians and a little bit, it seems like around 50% of Israelis don't want to partition the land. So it's kind of taking into consideration what the people want. And that being said, I do see a lot of benefit to having two distinct nations with two distinct governments. So it seems like a confederation can kind of create two separate governments, but at the same time, make it easier for those who don't want to partition the land to accept such a solution.
So in that case, let me ask you an hypothetical then. Do you think that if Yasser Arafat accepted Camp David, or if Abu Mazen accepted Olmert in 2008, do you think that the state of Israel and Palestine would be better now or worse now?
I think it would be better, because I think that there's a certain psychological toll that comes when you're being controlled by a foreign power that is hard to measure in like material. It's not like quantitative. You can't measure it, right? So like looking at like GDP or the economy of Palestine, it's possible the economy of Palestine would be worse if Palestinians were fully autonomous. I don't know, but let's assume it was worse. I think even if their economy was worse, they might still be better off, because the psychological toll that military occupation plays on them is hard to account for. And I think that's why a lot of the misery in Palestinians comes from knowing that there's another power whom they happen to hate, who is in control over their borders and sometimes their movement, and has the ability to expand territory and sometimes arrest for days and hold for days without trial. So I think just taking that out of the equation and allowing Palestinians to be governed by their own people, even if their government was oppressive and even if their economy was worse than it is now, I think that they'd still be ultimately better off. That being said, I'm not convinced that their economy would be worse if they were fully autonomous. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I was about to say that I do believe that everything would be better, right? I truly believe that if they took either of those deals, both the Palestinians' lives, the Israeli lives, and the conflict at large would have been improved, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a fair assumption to make. I can't say for sure. Like, it's hard to know what the internal,
right?
Like,
yeah.
It's possible that they would have a very oppressive government and that their economy wouldn't be succeeding, right? Like this might be, but I do agree that even if that was the case, it would still be better net total.
Yep, and actually, I'll say that I believe that their economy would have been improved too, because you know what, war is terrible for the economy, and even Israel could have been so much better off without the cost of war, right? So that said, right, if we believe those and those are two-state solutions, right? Why do we think that a confederation or a federation is better off? And I'll say another thing about it, because the thing about federation confederation is to appease certain parts of the population that right now don't like land swaps or don't like dividing the land, when in most likelihood, right, living together on the land, at least for the first few years, is going to be very tough, right? So the term I hear from Jews always is, we're afraid of genocide, right? And I'm sure that Arabs have their own fears. So that said, I just can't imagine those solutions being better than two-state solution. After being said that, if they took the two-state solution, everything would have been better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, I mean, hindsight is 2020, but I think that most Palestinians today would, if they could go back to like the 47 partition plan, they would take it in a heartbeat, right?
Well,
and
yeah.
I think many of them, if they could go back to Oslo or Camp David, I think they would take that in a heartbeat. But it seems like, and this Or Halamish made the point when he was on the show a few weeks ago. He said, both sides think that it's a waiting game, and eventually that they will prosper. So I think Palestinians very much are in the mindset of all or nothing, and we just need to wait it out. You know, maybe it'll take 50 years, maybe it'll take 100 years, but eventually Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. And I can't say for sure that that won't work, but it's like it's all or nothing. It's very risky. And if I were to give somebody,
that won't work, what do you mean?
well, there's no guarantee that, like, we don't know that Israel will be able to continue to be an exclusive Jewish state for 100 years. How can anybody predict where we'll be in 100 years? You know, I think it's more likely that the longer the conflict continues, the worse off it's going to be for Palestinians. If I were to have to guess, or if I were to, let's say you had like a betting odds on it, if I'd put my money on that. But there is some chance that Palestinians, if they continue this, call it a war of attrition, will prosper. Like, I can't say with full confidence that that's not the case. But as what I would tell Palestinians as a friend and as a neighbor is, you're risking, and a grave risk, not a little risk. You're risking any chance for Palestinian statehood the longer that you fight Israel. So the sooner Palestinians compromise and acknowledge that Israel is here to stay, the better off they'll be. And if we look at the past 70 plus years, you know, that notion seems to be true. But can I guarantee 100% that it's true? No, because, you know, 100 years is a long time, and it's unclear how things are going to play out.
Okay, I mean, I would say that the nation states do come and go, right? That does happen. It's not impossible. But what we've yet seen is a nation state with nuclear power come and go. That would be a terrible thing for the region, right? So I hope that doesn't happen, because that would probably mean somebody's got this massive power in their hands that it's not a nation state anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it would be a disaster, but I don't know if it being a disaster changes the likelihood of it happening or not. You know, because the world moves so fast today that like 100 years is like, I mean, historically it's nothing. It's
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
just it's a blink of an eye. But the world is going to be so different in 100 years that no one can accurately predict what it's going to look like. I mean, the nation state may be 50 years outdated in 100 years time, right? So it's unclear what the future holds. So, you know, I try to be honest enough with the idea that we really don't know, but I do agree with you that a nuclear power that loses sovereignty and then it's unclear where the nuclear weapons go. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not a good thing. And I think that any solution that is created by force isn't going to be good for one population or the other. So I'd like to see a solution where both sides consent to, and that's going to take compromise. No one's going to get everything they want.
And that's the other half, right? So I totally agree about the getting somebody to come to terms on an agreement they might not fully love. The question then, who will not love it from each side, right? So we talked about who represents the Palestinians in any negotiations or any sort of agreement, right? And right now it's kind of hard to say, right?
Yeah.
So somebody's going to have to make tough decisions. Who that person is unclear.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in agreement there.
All right, cool.
So, does that kind of answer, like, why I lean more towards federation and confederation, generally speaking? Like, I'm not opposed to two states. I just think that the forces on the ground are just opposed to it, and I think that, again, if we're talking about consent and agreement, then it would be easier to find some kind of a hybrid solution. I just think that you're more likely to get both sides to agree in some form of a hybrid solution.
So I just would say that I hold the opposite idea, that I think that it will be easier to get people to agree to a solution leaders agreed on, right? So it's very hard to get a population out of, we believe X or Y without a major shift on the ground. Um, and I think that closely held idea that, oh, we gotta have it all, it's just not gonna happen, right? Like that river to the sea dream.
Right.
If it's not gonna happen, then something else needs to happen, right? To make any positive movement. And that something else, in my mind, needs to be the two-state solution, right? It needs to be, okay, so we're dividing the land now, and if you still got problems with that's unfortunate, right? And people will come to terms with it later.
Yeah.
Because in any solution, people will have to say that line, right? That's unfortunate.
Right. I mean, so I agree with you. I just think that there's certain solutions that, like, if we could lower the amount of people objecting to it, because even if leaders come to a solution, that doesn't mean there's not going to be some infighting, rebellion, violence, right? It seems like whatever the solution is, there's going to be people objecting, and there might be some amount of violence. So if we could reduce the amount of people objecting, I think we're going to be better off. And I think the hybrid solutions probably will reduce the amount of people objecting.
Okay, fair enough. I have to run now, but appreciate the talk, and we'll let you know about those channels I thought about.
Yeah, thank you, Ayala. I very much appreciate you coming on and sharing and giving ideas for how we could extend reach. You could, if you don't already, you could find my contact information in the description here. There's a link tree there, so just reach out on any of the social platforms, and we'll chat. And I'd be happy to have you come on again. So
cool.
Whenever you want. תודה רבה, אח שלי. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.
Nir, I see you're back. I'll bring you on in a minute. We got a super chat from LearnThink. Good to see you back over here from Twitch. Although I see we still have one Twitch viewer. LearnThink giving us $5 Canadian. What do you think about Palestinian people who are being forcefully evicted from their homes? Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I mean, evictions generally, like I'd like to see that not happen. Not all evictions happening on the land are the same. I don't fully understand the legal status of every eviction, so I need to take it on a case-by-case basis. But generally speaking, evicting someone from their home is a form of injustice. It causes immense pain to the people being evicted. It seems like the way the system is built is that Palestinians are far more likely to be evicted than Israelis, and that should obviously change. And yeah, I mean, somebody's home is really somebody's security. It's their comfort. It's often their livelihood. So taking that from somebody is quite devastating and something we should try to not do. I hope that answers your question. Thanks again for the super chat. Nir, I will. You ready to come back on? Cool.
Hey man, can I share with you what I'm doing right now as we speak?
Yeah, sure.
Even though it's not really related to the to the conflict or something like that, but I am working on my new website, which will be sportsfanstraveling.com, which will be a website to experience all types of sports traveling, from sports bars, from getting into stadiums, every fan experience that you can think about. This website will be a part of it. And the reason I'm telling you about it, because one of the things that I think is missing when we're talking about the conflict is seeing what Daniel talked about, Israelis and Palestinians talking about their dreams, their goals, their real life, seeing them as human being. I'm a human being that is now starting his entrepreneurship ways and chasing after a dream to create my own website, my own business, and to, inshallah, as they say, grow and reach. Because I do work in this field, but in a company, not as an employer, not as an independent. And inshallah, I will be able to reach to big clubs and create deals with, you know, some hotels, some airline companies. You know, to see someone chasing his dream, I think is very important when you talk about two countries, you know, fighting together. You see human beings, and it's very important for the other side to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I wish you best of luck on your venture. I always appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit, and I think generally speaking, it'd be cool to see like more Israelis and Palestinians getting into business together. You know, if we could build more like shared economic ties, I think that's a great force of peace building. So, yeah.
Sure thing. I'm in my vision. I would like to see some Palestinians share their experience about going to a Maccabi Haifa game in Europe, for example.
Right.
You know,
Right.
think about it. It can be
Yeah.
very interesting and cool.
Send me a link. I'd be happy to talk more about it. Give you my thoughts. You know, I've been working in the high tech space for quite some time now, so I have some perspective. I'd be happy to talk more about it.
All right. So keep on keeping on. Just
Is the website up already?
Give me 24 hours.
So on the next call-in show, you could come on and you could do a screen share and you could show it to the community. Cool.
Ah, cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah,
Talk
it's
soon.
supposed to be ready until Black Friday. Black Friday is the due date, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, Black Friday's coming up.
Yeah.
What a day.
Yeah.
Um,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Bye, man. Thanks.
Awesome, Nair. Thank you. I shared the StreamYard link if anybody else wants to join. Let's see. Off kilter, you asked. No Palestinians called in yet. No, not yet. I know Rajia told me she wants to join. Rajia is our Palestinian British community member who's become a good friend the past few months. She has a bone to pick with me about us platforming Adam Green on November 18th. Adam Green is a pretty big channel on BitChute. Most Jews would consider him to be very anti-Semitic. Adam claims he's not anti-Semitic. Jake, I see you here in the waiting room. Put on a profile picture just so you look all nice and stuff, or turn your camera on. So Raji is pretty upset that we're platforming Adam Green, and she was going to come on and make the case why we shouldn't and try to convince me otherwise. I don't know where she is, but maybe she'll come on because I'm very happy to have that conversation with her. But until then, no. Yeah, so far no Palestinians. Come on. Marudels asks, Adar, what are the chances of getting a marketing job in Israel with just speaking English? So in Tel Aviv, you know, there's a lot of high-tech companies where I don't think you need to speak great Hebrew to get. I think it's possible. You could definitely land a job at a startup here with just English. People do it. Like one of my closest friends doesn't have great Hebrew, and he kills it in the VC world. So yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And if you attempt to, I wish you the best of luck on that journey. Jake, ooh, nice car. You ready to come on? Huh. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm seeing MK Matt goes, Sulha, I'm a member of Den of Nerds. What crazy to hear the community talking about you with the BBS project Small World. Yeah, so for those who don't know, Den of Nerds is one of our most active communities on BBS. So wait, MK Matt, were you familiar with Sulha prior, or did you find about us through BBS? What's the connection between this? Because that's kind of cool to see a nice little overlap. Regardless, it's good to see you here. Jake, I'm bringing you on.
What's up, man? Can you hear me?
Jake, yeah, how are you?
I'm good. I just got here late. I'm sorry.
All good. Good to finally be speaking to you. We've chatted a bit on Discord, but I'm
Yo, that's
happy
on.
you're finally joining for a live stream.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say, about the Confederation. Do you think it would really work? Like, how would like the one government work? Like, you know what I mean? You know how you said it's two separate governments? How would like the national government work?
So I think that a confederation would only be two governments. There'd be an Israeli government and a Palestinian government. And what makes it a confederation is like shared cooperation. Maybe there could be like a dual security force. You could have pretty open borders, kind of like you have in Europe, which of course we would need security for.
Yeah.
But so it'd be two distinct governments that are really in like deep cooperation with one another. It's really just like a friendlier version of the two-state solution, right? Less cold. And it's
Yeah.
possible that it starts as two states and slowly warms up to a confederation, right? That may be what needs to happen. When it comes to like what the dual government, I think Rafi Gassel is better equipped to respond to this because he wrote up, or Emmanuel Shachaf as well, people who have written up federation plans. But the whole idea is that there would be three governments, one Israeli, one Palestinian, one dual government. The dual government would be 50-50 representation on both sides. And you have like a sophisticated system of checks and balances to ensure that people's rights are not being infringed on. So I think that's generally speaking at what a federation is meant to look like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But also, like, would there be like something to keep Israel Jewish, like in a national government? You know what I mean?
Wait, so one more time?
I said like, so you said like there would like the national government, they would also protect to make sure people's rights are protected, right?
Correct.
And I said, would there also be something to keep Israel Jewish? Like, would they have like a, I don't know how you would say it, like a
Well, yeah. So the idea is that you would have an Israeli government, which would be like the Jewish representation, and the Palestinian government would be the Palestinian representation. And so essentially, in a federation, you're going to have the land is going to be both Israeli and Palestinian intertwined into one another.
Okay.
And the system of checks and balances is what's meant to keep people's rights from being infringed on. So again, it's gonna be a state that is Jewish and Palestinian intertwined within one another.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah.
What about the Palestinian right of return? Would they still do that, or no?
Again?
Sorry, my mic is kind of low. I was gonna say, like, what about the Palestinian right of return? Would that be also like implemented too?
Yeah, so I think different federation solutions try to approach this differently, but if you look at it, like this land is split up into different cantons or states. Like cantons is what you have in Switzerland, and states is what you have in the United States. You could very possibly have it being on a state level. So certain cantons can decide to allow for, they can decide what their yearly immigration numbers will look like. And I imagine that you're going to have a pretty vast difference in how different cantons view immigration, because again, in a democracy, demographic concerns are pretty legitimate. So I think that is that's probably how it would look like. So most likely the Palestinian majority cantons will give right of return, and the Jewish majority ones, there's a less likelihood of that happening, or maybe they will give a right of return, but it'll be very limited in numbers, right? I probably see it playing out something like that.
I mean, I still don't think like right of return would still be realistic in a confederation, because you can't just have like 5 million people coming all at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I say whatever form of right of return will happen. It will need to be within a framework of a manageable immigration. So first of all, I don't think 5 million is really the amount of Palestinians that will want to come. You know, Palestinians that are currently living in like first world countries, I think a lot of them would just rather stay there where they have a livelihood, where, you know, their lives are good. I don't think we're going to have 5 million, but let's just say you have 1 million. Israel currently but has around 30,000. I believe the number is 30,000 Jews moving to Israel every year. Yeah, we could we could probably handle a fair bit more. So let's say even in a one-state solution, whatever the solution is, Israel could say, we're going to cap 60,000 new immigrants a year. This is what we could handle in terms of like processing them, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of what the economy can sustain. So we'll allow in 60,000, and that'll be 30,000 Jews, 30,000 Palestinians, right? So that's like a solution where you do allow for a right of return, where you don't have hundreds of thousands of people coming a year, causing both demographic concern and economic issues. So I would probably see it. I probably see it playing out like that.
Yeah, and I'm just saying. Plus, Israel would also have to like help these people like look for jobs, because a lot of them are refugees and like don't have any like working experience and stuff.
Yeah, right. So it's like no, like sane immigration policy. I know in the U.S. politics, it's in recent years been painted as like a far right position to care about the borders. You must be like a radical, but that's honestly that's dumb. That's a mistake I think the left is making, and they've been making a lot of mistakes lately. It seems like 5 years ago, I when I looked at the state of the Republican Party, I'm like, dude, there's no way the Republican Party will be legitimate in a decade, because it just seemed they didn't seem to be with the times. And then the Democrats are like, hold my beer. Let me show you how ridiculous we can be. And the Democrats keep the Republicans relevant because of how garbage of a party they also are. And one of them is demonizing people who think that sane immigration is somehow racist. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff when it comes to like racial and other social justice issues where I think that they're getting it wrong and alienating Americans. So. But yeah, sane immigration. Every country should be able to decide their immigration policy. No one should be forced to let in whatever amount of people. That being said, I do think that living in a first world country is a great privilege, one that people did not work hard for. So like me being born in a first world country, why do I deserve that privilege while people are born in a third world country and get so much less?
Yeah.
So we do need to be considerate to this, and I think wealthy nations should work to, in a peaceful way, build developing nations so they have a better quality of life. The solution is not to bring everyone in, because then you not only do you not help those countries, but you put too much strain on your own country. And if you believe in like being a social democracy with the social safety net where you're getting like healthcare and education, so obviously when you have these social services, you're going to incentivize. Obviously, people want free services, but a country cannot sustain unlimited amount of people on these social systems. So by letting people in, you just reduce the quality of life for people living in the first world. What I would prefer to see is first world countries taking some percentage of their budget and spending it to build the developing world, because it's not fair that first world countries have so much more. It's that we didn't work hard. Like I didn't work hard to live to be born in a first world country. It's just chance. I'd like to see our military budget. I'd like to see us like stop the arms race, which is just a huge waste of resources, and spend what we're spending on the arms race to spend it in building countries that need it more, and also rebuilding like our own countries. Like America's in many ways is a failing nation.
The infrastructure is horrible.
The infrastructure. Yeah, America needs a huge infrastructure plan, and the infrastructure of the military is doing very well. So let's rebuild America, and let's try to help build countries that have people who are struggling and who want to immigrate.
Of course. I think about like, I don't mean to get into America real quick, but can you still hear me?
Yep.
I was going to say, I think like 20, 30 years ago, America was a great country because we were ahead of everybody. But I think nowadays, with like what you said, with both of the parties and stuff, and like just a lot of like it is becoming a failed state. They don't even have free healthcare here or nothing.
Yeah, America. And if you look at like the homelessness issue, like
it's horrible.
It's horrible. Go to San Francisco. It's sad. It's sad to see what's going on there, and other cities. Yeah,
it's sad to see what happened to this country. But I was also going to say about the military spending. I think, for example, like I think I think countries like Israel, there's really a reason to spend a lot of money on military because look at the surrounding nations in the surrounding area. You know what I mean? Like the United States is different. Like
Oh,
we're not
I think
surrounded by
I
enemies and stuff.
I agree. I think Israel faces a legitimate existential threat. Like I think Israel's military budget is legitimate, but I do think our maintained occupation of the West Bank costs us a lot of money that we should find a way. You know, like the sooner we could find a way towards peace, and I recognize that our military forces there keep the Jews living there safe, and they probably act as counter-terrorist units. But I also think they also fuel the next generation of terrorists as well. So I'm not convinced the counter-terrorist measures are worth it. But Israel has a need for a military, but you know, Israel should work to a future where they're not in as much need of a military, and where they could also invest that money into their own people. There's something like 30 to 40,000 Holocaust survivors living in Israel who are in poverty, right? Like
Well, I didn't even know that.
yeah, like that's horrible. How can you even justify something like that? Like out of all
Yeah,
people, Holocaust survivor.
I know. But yeah, oh, sorry, you gonna say something real quick?
No.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, the occupation in the West Bank needs to end because not only does like it make us look bad around the world, it ruins our reputation, but eventually there's gonna get to a point where we can't pull out of the West Bank. And I say this: if Israel wants to remain a Jewish state, we have to leave the West Bank. Like,
it's interesting because the Israelis that want a one-state solution the most are the ones who are who very much want a Jewish state, but they're the ones who are threatening a Jewish state by pushing a one-state solution. I agree completely.
yeah, because before I joined this Discord, I was one of those people. I thought that like, you know, we should just annex the West Bank and just be done with it. But then like, you know, I heard the other side, and then I realized that like, you know, Israel would just become an apartheid if we annex the entirety of the West Bank.
Correct.
You have to think of it like this: those Palestinians are not gonna accept Israel. Like we can't give them citizenship. They're gonna resist, and it would just be horrible. And then we would become de facto apartheid. That's why I think that's why we should go back to 67 borders. I mean, maybe the Confederation would work, but I think the best bet is to go back to 67 borders, and like, you know, and where the green line is, there should be like a UN like peacekeeping force alongside with like Israeli soldiers and stuff. That's my solution to it.
Yeah, that all sounds reasonable to me, but I definitely agree with you. The problem of the one state, and not to mention, not only will it be the death of the Jewish state, but Palestinians deserve their own self-determination. So
yeah,
yeah. Cool, Jake. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up here? I see Paulina, if you're gonna be, I see you're waiting. If you want to come on with no video, just give yourself an avatar. I know already it's gonna be your cat, but yeah, let's get that up.
No, I think that was it. I think I discussed what I wanted to. So yeah, thank you for having me on, by the way.
Yeah, cool, Jake. I appreciate you coming and sharing, and I'd love to have you back at some point.
Yeah. I'll come on whenever. If you let me come back on, I'll come on for a video
sure.
or something. All right.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. Paulina, real quick before we bring you on, I just see a question by Alram. Sulha, hi, keep up the good work. But Adar, don't you think that this demographic fear is one of the root causes of the conflict? Yeah, I very much think it is. I think it's probably the root cause of the conflict. I think if there wasn't a demographic concern, then most other things would be made easier when it comes to solving the conflict, without a doubt. Rudos asks, what are the rules of calling in? Anyone can call in. General topics, Israel-Palestine, but we could talk about other topics. I'm interested in many topics. It's just being Israeli, this is the one that is close to home and heart, and that I have legitimacy speaking on because I'm affected by it and live here. So, MK Matt, I see your response too, that you were a Sulha community member and also a member of Den of Nerds, and these crazy worlds have collided. Cool, yeah, small world, great. Tell the whole Den of Nerds community about us. Let's bring those people in. Suna Naza, am I picking questions from the YouTube chat? Yeah, I am, and we try to get to everything, but obviously we prioritize super chats. So let's get those super chats going, crew. Paulina, ready to come on? Cool. Paulina, good to see you.
Hi. I have my
Hey.
cat for tax.
Yeah, there we go.
He doesn't want to be on camera.
One more comment. Gerfod goes, Adar is a closeted anti-imperialist. Am I closeted though? I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty vocal in being anti-imperialism. But yeah, maybe. You could elaborate on that. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Cool, Paulina. We spoke a little bit today on WhatsApp, but we haven't really caught up in a while. How's everything going?
I'm doing well. Yeah. I since there was still space in the queue, I figured I would come on and there's a question that I've been puzzling a bit about recently. So I figured I would ask your take on it. It kind of has to do with the conflict, and then it also has to do with like wokeness and identity politics a bit. So basically, as you know, I'm dating someone Druze, which has been really, really interesting because it's given me a completely different perspective on things, because it's a very obviously they're a minority in Israel, so it's a very unique perspective, and it's given me a lot to think about. But when I first met him, he was very, very clear with me. Like, I'm not Arab. He was like, I speak Arabic. And my reaction to it was kind of like, okay, Wikipedia otherwise, but all right. And I kind of chalked it up to like a language of thing where, we're speaking in Hebrew. So I was like, I'm taking Arabi here to mean like Palestinian. But since then, from speaking to people in the server and some other Palestinian friends, the opinion that they all seem to share is that Druze Israeli are Palestinian, and they've kind of sold me on that because it's a matter of like ethnic history, culture, linguistic characteristics, and all these things. So and also I've been reading about quite a bit of academic papers on the history of the Druze in Israel, and why they're considered to be like why they're so different, and why they're considered to be loyal and everything like that, and so different from other Arabs. And there does seem to be quite, I've been learning about how there has been kind of like a strategy on the part of the Israeli government or the Israeli military to kind of divide and conquer, where they're almost purposely encouraging this sort of separatism of like, oh no, I'm not Arab, I'm Druze, I'm something different, and this sort of like not wanting to identify with that. So, from speaking to the Palestinians on the server, I was very sold. Like, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, that they're actually Palestinian, and I can see why you think that. But then the other day I was thinking about it, and then I was like, hang on, because when I haven't discussed any of this with him, and when I think about doing that, I'm like, I think that he would not agree with us at all. He would be like, no fucking way. Oh, sorry, I don't know if we're not allowed to curse on the live stream.
No, yeah, you could curse.
My bad. But yeah, I think he would be like pretty strongly opposed to that. And then it kind of got me thinking like where the line is with identity, how much of it is objective and how much is subjective, like how a person wants to identify. Because all these, these arguments that I've been hearing and what I've been reading, it makes a lot of sense, like from an objective standpoint. But then on the other hand, knowing him personally, I would feel wrong telling him like, no, you're Palestinian. Like, you're a Palestinian. I don't care what you tell me. I don't care how you feel about it. Like, you're a Palestinian. And and thinking about it the other day, I was like, I don't see how that's different from telling someone how to identify with something else. For example, like a trans woman, for example, if I was like, no, I know you since you were like, I know you since we were kids. I know you were born this way and you were raised this way. So I consider you a man or whatever. And that's kind of violent in my eyes. So since then I've been sort of like struggling with it. And I'm like, I actually don't know how I feel about this now.
So I thought, that you pose a good question. Let's try to break it down. So first of all, I think it's about the whole divide and conquer in Israel, like intentionally trying to separate Druze from the other Arabs and Israeli Arabs from Palestinians. I'm not saying that's not true. It might be. I just don't know enough about it to comment on it. But I'm under the impression that we call Israeli Arabs and not Palestinians because I don't know if we refer to Palestinians as Palestinians prior to the 60s. So, like, calling them Israeli Arabs was the natural name to call them. We call them Aravim Israelim. That's what they were. So I don't think that was intentional. But it does make sense that Israel would have interest in getting our Arab/Palestinian population to identify as Israeli, not Palestinian. They want, Israelis want their own citizens to be loyal to the government. When it comes to the Druze, I'm not sure if how much of Druze not identifying as Arab comes from the Israeli government. I'd say one way to look at that is to look at the Druze in Syria and Lebanon and Jordan and see how they identify. But it shouldn't be surprising if less Druze in Israel identify as Arab than in Arab countries because there's negative sentiment towards Arabs here. So a lot of our identity, identity can change depending on where we are and how it benefits us. And I think that's important to keep in mind. So just earlier in the stream, we had some Israeli Arabs walking by and they stopped to talk. And I asked them if they identify as Israeli Arabs or Palestinian Israelis. And they said it depends, right? So I imagine they're more comfortable identifying as Aravim Israelim here in Israel. But I think if they were went to Dubai or somewhere in the world that it was very pro-Palestine, then they'd say they're Palestinian, right? They wouldn't say they're Israeli. Mm-hmm. I think that when it comes to identity, there's certain identities that are more objective. So I'm bald, right? I wouldn't say baldness is an identity, but there's no debate whether I have hair or not. If I were to grow it out, I'd still, it still comes in, but I'm bald. But a lot of identity isn't objective. It's not based on fact. It's based off individual interpretation. And, whether your boyfriend identifies as Druze or Arab, he can't be wrong. It's up to him. Similar to gender identity. I think sexual identity is objective, right? It has to do with chromosomes and sexual organs, but gender being a social construct, I think also it's in the realm of subjective and people can identify how they want. So, I'm only Jewish because I identify as Jewish, and religious people may disagree. They'd say my mom's Jewish, that makes me Jewish. But if I were to decide to just identify as, an atheist with no connection to Judaism, how can anybody tell me otherwise? And I think identity that comes down to whether it's gender or things related to ethnic groups, races, I think there's a lot of subjectivity there because ethnic groups and races aren't like there's Ashkenazi, my DNA test says I'm Ashkenazi, right? So you could say that that's not subjective, right? That's in DNA, but even races and ethnicities, there's no clearly defined genetic makeup of every ethnicity. What is the genetic makeup of being an Arab, right? It's not clear. It's a very broad and diverse, and people who identify as Arabs, you might have and the genetic makeup of a Moroccan is vastly different than the genetic makeup of a Palestinian. A Palestinian is different from an Iraqi. So genetic makeup, it's very broad and diverse. So there's a lot of room for interpretation there. And Druze have their own distinct genetic makeup as well. Mm. They also look different, their eyes, some of them have the most beautiful hazel and green eyes. That is very rare to actually see in other Arab cultures, but Druze very much have those eyes. So, and if somebody wants to say, as long as you speak Arab and you come from an Arab heritage, that makes you an Arab, fine. Somebody can make that claim, but they can't impose that identity on somebody else. Yeah. Right. So ultimately, your boyfriend gets to decide if he's Arab or Druze or both. Now, that doesn't mean that part of his identity might not be influenced by environmental conditions growing up in Israel. That very well may be, and we should look at the data to see how Syrians identify, and we should look for more proof to see if Israel intentionally has tried to separate Jews from Arabs. But ultimately, regardless of that, it's still fully up to him to identify how he wishes. What I would say is not tell him he's an Arab, but share with him the perspective of other Palestinians you've spoken to, and see how he responds to this, see how that makes him feel. And I think that's like a good way to open the conversation, and ask him if,
ask him what?
No, just ask him like how he feels about that, and if he thinks that growing up in Israel impacted him not wanting to be Arab and wanting to be Druze. Like, did his parents tell him he's Druze and not Arab? Where do they get it from, right? So I think there's a conversation to be had without telling him, what his identity is, because ultimately it's up to him.
Yeah, it just goes to show like how complex identity is, because I kind of went back and forth on it, because at first I was like, okay, I was very much like, okay, listening to him, like, all right, he's not, like, he's just Druze. And then I was like, oh no, actually this makes sense. And then I kind of went the other way and thinking, from what I was reading about why there's a lot of papers and stuff that you can read on like why the Druze are so overrepresented in the military and like the border police and stuff like that. And there's a very strong argument to be made that it is because, as you said, just a matter of like safety and adapting to the environment. That's kind of like, that's like the border guard specifically. It's kind of one of the only careers where they can sort of bypass this discrimination against Arabs because they have like the military experience and this kind of stuff. So it is sort of just trying to survive in Israeli society as a minority. So then I flipped back over to being like, oh, this makes sense. I can see how he's sort of, he is this, but he's sort of been divorced from that identity in a way it's just a natural thing to protect yourself in the society. But then thinking about actually saying that to him, I was like, no, I think that he would find that, quite emotionally upsetting, because he's in the army and stuff at the moment. So it's a touchy subject. And so I wouldn't just presume to tell him how he identifies. But then I started comparing it to how it is with Jews. And, I see all this talk online about a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, and how you can never actually, you can stop identifying as a Jew and you can be like an atheist. But the discourse that I see online a lot is that you can't actually get rid of it. Like you'll always be a Jew. You can't like sign that part of you away. So it's just very confusing. There doesn't seem to be a clear answer.
Yeah. That's the challenge with identity, and I think the world is going through an identity crisis. Like we see this in people's Twitter bios, how many aspects of their identity they feel like they need to display to the world. Like pronouns is one of them, but then people feel the need to share that they're neurodivergent, and then there's like a half dozen other identities that people feel are important. And I'm not like, by all means, they have a right to do that. But the question is where this drive for them to do that comes from, like why they feel it's important. I personally just identify less with these external identities. Like I take pride in being like subscribing to humanist values. I'm a human, I love all people. I would say my Jewish and Israeli identity will then come second, but like a far second, right? A far second to that. Like I think it's cool being of the Jewish people. Like it was, I was born Jewish. Like we look at all this history we're part of. It's interesting. It's an interesting tribe to be a part of, but I don't take pride in it because it's not something I did. I didn't work for it. I was just born Jewish. So cool. I'm a Jew. But I'm not. I don't feel the need to display my Jewishness in my bio. It's just I'm just a human here in this world, trying to do my small part, trying to learn while I'm at it, have a lot of fun, have new experiences, inspire change, and then pass on to whatever comes next. Is it an afterlife, another life, or eternal darkness? I'm not sure, but just going with the flow.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure. I'd be interested to speak to a psychologist and understand why the need so strong, like why identity is so important to so many people. Like it seems essential.
Mhm.
I guess like our identity helps us understand who we are. I think it grounds us, right? I'm thinking out loud. So first of all, it grounds us, and it also gives us part of puts us part of a tribe. So you could see why like there's an evolutionary benefit to having an identity. Those are your people. Your people keep you safe, right? Your people protect you. So it's a feature that is now kind of acting out, and now we're like going identity crazy, and we're still trying to connect to all these tribes for comfort. But I think that ultimately we live in a globalized world where every human has the ability to be a friend and part of your tribe. Like we're just part of the human tribe today, and I think that's the ultimate identity we need to try to we need to try to subscribe to. So that's kind of how I see it. Yeah.
I agree.
Garefoot goes, the pronouns, Twitter bars, etc. stuff is a tiny Western bubble phenomenon. Let's not overestimate it. Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. Just Twitter's very Western, very American. So it's probably where it's like right in front of my eyes. I imagine the majority of the world do think it's quite silly. But it still is interesting where that energy comes from. What else is on your? Wait, hold on. I saw Chris Roberts, who said you're coming to Israel. Asked if we can meet up. Yeah, sure. Hit me up when you're around. We'll meet. Baron Micro asked, what's the singular of Druze? The singular of Druze is Druze, and the plural is Druze. And in Hebrew, it's Druzi, and it's singular Druzi, and the plural is Druzim, with a mem at the end. M. Let's see. Nomad goes, Adar saying Arab or Druze is like saying Arab or Christian. It's an oxymoron. What do you mean? I don't think oxymoron's quite the right word, but you're
redundancy,
saying
maybe is what
redundant. Maybe
that might be what they meant to say.
That he's saying maybe you could be both, or you are by default. Well, but only some Arabs are Christians. Like not all Christians are Arabs, and not all Arabs are Christians. So I'm not sure that's a good example. Are you saying that all Druze are by default Arab? Right. I mean, I would say that generally speaking, you shouldn't tell people how to identify. So if a Druze tells you they're not Arab, you should probably accept that. It's like, what do you care ultimately?
But that's what I like. I don't know. I feel like I need to learn more about what being Arab actually is and like what it means, and I need to look more into the history of that, because I'm not sure how I'm not sure how objective it is versus subjective, because from the arguments I've been hearing, it's been framed as sort of a very objective thing where it's like, no, he's Arab. And when you Google Druze people, it comes up on Wikipedia. It's like they're Arab, blah 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 blah.
Oh, Wikipedia says they're Arabs.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, Suna Naza, I see you say you have a question. Do you want to ask the question in chat, or do you want to come on stream and discuss? So AS goes, not all Arabs are Muslim and not all Arabs are Christian. Arab is a linguistic group. Yeah, so I mean, I've actually heard somebody explain that in order to be Arab, it's just if Arab is the language you speak, like as a mother tongue. But even then, it's like if you're like a Syrian immigrant in New York and you happen to learn like English as your first language, are you no longer an Arab, right? So we just need to accept it's not so black and white. There's a lot of up for interpretation here, and the rule of thumb is if somebody's identity should not be more important to you than it is to them. Okay, like generally speaking. if somebody identifies some way, let them have it. You don't need to fight them on that. Unless, like, I could see a situation where you have like some people on Twitter who they say they're Jewish, but they spew things that are constantly seen as anti-Semitic. So I would say that's the time where you could object to somebody's identity. It seems like they're using an identity to gain legitimacy, and then they spew garbage. So I'd say
reminds me of people.
That
reminds me of certain accounts.
Yeah. We're thinking of the same person. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'd say in that case, you have a right to be offended by somebody's identity because they're actually using it to harm you. Right. So that case, you have a right to object. But generally speaking, someone else's identity shouldn't really be that important to you. It's more important to them. Let them have it. So Nomad corrects. Nomad says Adar, Arab is someone that belongs to a nation that speaks Arabic as the first language. Right. So this is a common definition we heard. So, but here's the tricky thing. If that's really the definition we use, then Druze are not Arabs, because the most common language in Israel is Hebrew, right? So, like, I'm not sure that's a great definition. Druze living in Israel would then not be they wouldn't be Arabic.
Then that then immediately divides the Israeli Jews from other Jews.
From other Jews, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Jews are interesting. Like, they have like a fierce loyalty to whatever nation they're going to live in. It's like very much a part of their culture.
Yeah.
And it's a great meme, not in the sense of like an internet meme, but like a unit of culture, because it's one of the single best survival traits you could have, to be loyal to the nation that hosts you. And I think it's why most Israelis are very loving. Most Jewish Israelis are very loving towards the Jewish population. Like, they're very much held in high regard because of their loyalty. Yeah.
Yeah, like the rates, like the percentage of Jews who serve in the IDF is higher than Jews, Israeli Jews, because that includes like Haredim who don't serve.
Interesting.
So when you look at the percentage, it's actually they have the highest rate of serving in the IDF.
Interesting. Okay, I actually didn't know that, because I do know that Golan Druze aren't required to serve, and a lot of them don't, because they're scared that if one day the Golan is returned to Syria, then they'll be in danger. They also don't carry a green ID card, like a Tudat Zut, for that reason. But I guess if you account for Haredim, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I do see we have Jesse here in the waiting room. We'll bring Jesse on. Pauline, anything you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, that was it. It's kind of been bouncing around in my head for the last week or two, so I figured I would get your thoughts on it.
No, yeah. Thanks for sharing. I want you to come back on and tell us how the conversation went. Update us.
Yeah.
Update us. Yeah.
I will do. All right.
Awesome, Pauline. Great speaking to you. Jesse, you ready? Yeah. Hey, Jesse, what's going on? Wait, I'm not hearing you. You might need to set your mic settings. You'll see the cam and mic button, audio, and then just set the current mic you have. In the meantime, I'm going to read Suna Naz's question. Suna goes, there was a reunion of Jewish Lebanese in France, which triggered a media outburst here in Lebanon, where some people started saying that the idea of Jewish Lebanese would by default go against Zionism. Reunion of Jewish Lebanese in France.
Hey, does this work?
Yeah, I'm hearing you with a little bit of... No, I'm hearing a little sounds like chirping.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Maybe just put use the computer mic. It's not ideal, but it might.
Oh no, I don't have one. I'm on PC.
Or play with the plug of your mic.
Okay, yeah, that could be it.
So I'm trying to understand, Suna. I'm trying to understand. Would by default go against Zionism? Well, if it goes against Zionism, why would that upset them? It's because Lebanese are generally anti-Zionist. So if Jewish Lebanese goes against Zionism, it seems like they should be supportive of the fact that there's Jewish Lebanese. But But I mean, there's no reason why you can't be both Jewish and Lebanese, and you could also be a Jewish Lebanese Zionist. You could be a Jewish Lebanese anti-Zionist. Jesse, I'm putting you on mute because I'm hearing a lot of static.
Oh, really? Still, that's okay.
Yeah. I'll respond to this question, then we'll troubleshoot what's going on with you. Jewish, Lebanese, Zionist, anti-Zionist. Zionist and anti-Zionist are obviously contradictory identities, but you could be Jewish Lebanese Zionist, you could be Jewish Lebanese anti-Zionist. These are in no way contradictory. They're all perfectly compatible. Why are people triggered by it? I'm not quite sure. Maybe you could like elaborate and explain what's going on. But yeah, if Lebanese want to reconnect to their Jewish identity, by all means, welcome to the tribe. But yeah, I'm happy to hear you elaborate on that. I'm gonna let's. Yeah, we're getting.
We'll try. This is work.
Just turn your the mic on your headset off and use your computer mic.
Oh yeah, but I don't have one. I don't think like.
No, there's a built-in. There's like a built-in on every computer.
I got like a desktop, so that sucks. I have my work laptop. I'll get that one. I'll be back in a sec. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Silver 42 goes, God's side is the only good thing to come from Lebanon. Hey, don't be mean. There's probably plenty of other good stuff that come from Lebanon. I hear the food's great, and I hear Beirut is like a poppin' city, great art scene, great nightlife. And I don't know much about God's side, but I once commented on his tweet, and he blocked me. He's a little fragile, I gotta say, because I'm generally respectful when I tweet to people. I don't engage in personal attacks. Although today I called some dude insufferable because he really was insufferable. One of the woke types who said that essentially calling me racist for being anti-woke. You know that crew, constantly misinterpreting what I say, like a true gaslighter. So I called him insufferable. But generally speaking, I don't engage in personal attacks. I try to engage respectfully, and he blocked me. Okay, so God's side, I got beef with him. If he wants to come on the show and talk it over, let's have him on. So Suna, to continue our little chat. So being a Jewish Lebanese doesn't go against the creation of Israel. No, not at all. I mean, you have the population in Israel are Jews who returned to Israel after thousands of years in exile, and they came from all sorts of European countries, all sorts of Middle Eastern and North African countries. The 50% of Jews living in Israel are from the Middle East and North Africa. So what countries are that? You have Syrian Jews, you have Iraqi Jews, you have Irani Jews, you have Moroccan Jews, Tunisian Jews, Yemenite Jews, Egyptian Jews, Libyan and Lebanese Jews, right? So these are all these Jews. I'm not sure I've met many Lebanese Jews, but I think I met some. So all these Jews, all of like the Jews living in Israel come from all these countries. And then you have Jews from all the European countries, from South America, from North America, which is interesting because it makes the culture here very, very unique, right? All the Jews that came to the land in the past 100+ years brought aspects of their culture. And then you have the Palestinian culture that is part of the land. You have Samaritan culture, you have Circassian culture. There's even a population in the north, like near where I live, where I've only seen them a few times. They're Asian Jews. They're like from China, but they're religious Jewish. Very interesting. Like I need to speak to them. I need to understand what's going on with that community. But there's a community of them in the north. There's Ethiopian Jews, right? So yeah, it certainly doesn't go against the creation of Israel. Feel free to follow up, and I could elaborate if you have another question. I see a super chat. Where is it? All around 15 shekels. Thank you so much. This is a historical misconception that the Jews always follow the ruling power. They led revolts against the ruling power several times in history. Interesting. Okay, so I stand corrected. They're not always fiercely loyal. It seems in recent times they are. And Alram, you know, we've been speaking a lot about Druze. You, from what I know, you are Druze, so feel free to continue to correct. And I know I've invited you in the past, but if you ever want to come on the show and share more about the Druze people, I'd be happy to have you on. Okay, Jesse, let's give this a shot.
Hey.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, that's better, I think. No, I was watching it on my PC, so I was like, I might join in on there, but should have I used my laptop. So, I was thinking, right? So you guys were talking about the identity part, and I live in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and you know, I was thinking like here you don't have a lot of Jews. My granddad is actually one; he survived the Holocaust, but apart from that, I don't actually have any connection. But you know, you still hear about it a lot, the conflict. So you do feel like some part of like, I don't know, you do feel kind of connected, but also, not at all, but you do feel some more sympathy. So you have like, I was wondering like, what would the terms should be if someone wants to do an Aliyah? Like, because you can't just say like, oh, I'm a Jew now, you know, you get what I mean? And just like get in, you know, there should be like strict rules. So like, how do you like say like what's identity and what's like factual?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for those who are unfamiliar with the term Aliyah, Aliyah is Jewish immigration to the land. It's called Aliyah, which means to elevate, to go up. So it kind of has like a spiritual meaning, I guess. But so you're asking like what the criteria is to be considered Jewish in order to make Aliyah.
Yeah. Like,
so,
so when is it identity, and like, when does it become like real? Like when are you like?
Well,
you have lots of people saying they are, and that should be okay. But it's also like, you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so you're giving like a clear example where an identity is written into some law, right? And well, the second that happens, it's no longer. So that doesn't contradict somebody's own personal identity. So somebody may identify as Jewish, maybe only their father. I don't know the exact Aliyah law. I think you need to be at least 1/4.
Oh, sorry. Can I interrupt?
Yeah, are you familiar with it?
Yeah. I looked it up because I was curious, right? I'm not actually interested in going, but it does sometimes seem appealing, you know? And even I qualify for it because of my granddad, like, and he's from my dad's side. So I'm just a little bit like, I don't know, because I've also seen documentaries about lots of like Ukrainian people or like Christian, and they're suddenly like, oh yeah, life's better over there, I might move. And I'm not like blaming them, but it's also like, if you're in a conflict and you're like, for example, Palestinian, and you're seeing that, it's also a little bit like, yeah, I don't know, I can see, yeah.
So like let's try to just make some clarity here. So a lot of identity is how we self-identify, but a nation's law does not need to doesn't necessarily need to respect one's own personal identity. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're about to go to prison, right? And before you go, you're like, I'm a woman, I want to go to the women's prison. But you still have like the sexual organ of a man, you're not taking hormones, everything about you is a man, but you identify as a woman. It makes sense for the state to not respect that identity and put you in a woman's prison, right? That's just, obviously there's so many issues with that. So again, that doesn't mean that person should not have the right to identify as they want, but the legal system doesn't need to respect everybody's identity, and as we can see, that's for good reason. So Jewish law says that you're Jewish if your mother's Jewish, right?
Yeah.
But the way Israel defines a Jew legally who can make Aliyah is, as you said, is not. It could be your dad or your dad's dad. Even if your dad's dad is Jewish, that's enough for you to be able to make Aliyah. Now, I do know that there's been some criticism that Israel is more lenient in considering Jews from like Europe, like how they consider somebody from Europe Jewish and how they consider somebody from Africa Jewish. They're more lenient with letting Europeans in. I have seen this critique. I don't know the exact story, so I don't want to speak too much on it right now. But what you mentioned, Palestinians being upset about it. I mean, yeah, without a doubt, like Palestinians are fighting for the right of return. And we have the right to return after 2,000 years, and for them it's been 70 years, and they're not allowed to return. So obviously they're going to be upset, and rightfully so. You know, we yearned to return for thousands of years and finally made it happen, and they're going to continue to yearn to return probably until it can happen. So yeah, it's part of the inequality that exists on this land, something that we should work to change. Generally speaking, both Israelis and Jews and Palestinians who want to live on the land should have a way to make it back. And I'd also be open to Israel opening up the border to immigrants that are not Jewish or Palestinian. Maybe not to the same numbers, but yeah, like there's Christians that live here and they need to leave every 3 months just to not like break the law. So they leave every 3 months, and then sometimes it's even for a few days and then come back, right? But if you've been living here for years, like give them a citizenship, let them be part of the country. That's my view. Obviously, many people on land wouldn't agree with that, but that seems to make perfect sense to me.
Okay, cool. I was just curious about one more thing.
Sure, yeah.
But it's a little bit besides the topic. It goes deeper into the identity. So are you also a little bit familiar with football and soccer? Like
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So like
I play fantasy football. You know, and it makes
Okay,
life more
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
So here we have like Ajax. I'm quite a fan about it. And recently I was in the stadium, and just one of the things I find really uncomfortable is like the obsession with Jews. Like it's used. I don't know. Have you ever seen it or heard about it?
There's a lot of anti-Semitism at the sports games. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a bit different because their rivals used to use the like Jews as like a slur towards them,
Right.
towards the fans and the players, because it's like it was in a Jewish neighborhood. So they were like, okay, then we're Jews, and then just they started calling themselves Super Jews. And in the beginning, it was quite funny. You get what I mean? But now it's become like such a thing that like you're in a stadium, it's like 50,000 people screaming Jews, Jews, like Yoda, yo, and it's like all in the same rhythm. You see Israeli flags, and like no one's Jewish, like literally no one.
Interesting.
There's, like,
So wait, so they were
so there's,
called
like,
Jews
10,000
as like
Jewish people living in the Netherlands, and there's like 50,000 people like yelling Jews, Jews.
honestly, I'm pretty okay with that. It's because it's like it was used as a derogatory slur against them, and then they just owned it. They're like, you know what, you want to call me a Jew? Fine, I'll be a Jew. What it shows is that they themselves have no problem with the slur. Like they're very much owning it and saying, you know what, call me a Jew. I don't think these people don't go home and consider themselves to be Jewish, right? It's kind of just like a stadium gimmick, which I think is funny and good-hearted. It's quite possible I'm in the minority of Jews who's going to say that I'm okay with this, but you know, like I'd say it's problematic that the other team is saying Jews as a slur. We know that there's a huge problem with anti-Semitism in Europe, so it's not surprising that they use Jew as a slur. But I think it's a very clever way to deal with the slur. It's actually similar. Like you'll see a lot of Jews on Twitter, myself included. We put our name in the triple parentheses. Triple parentheses is like is an anti-Semitic coded word for Jews. It's called an echo because Jews make echoes around the world. So the way anti-Semites talk Jews, they say they or someone's name, and they'll put them in triple parentheses. So what Jews did, we said, yeah, we'll put ourselves in triple parentheses. We'll own that shit. We're Jewish. So yeah, and that just goes to show that an identity strengthens when you're hated for that identity, generally speaking. So like I don't, as I mentioned before, like my Jewish identity isn't a very strong part of my individual identity, but my Jewish identity has been strengthened because of anti-Semites. Like the reason why my name is in parentheses and I'm saying I'm proudly Jewish is because people have hated on me for being Jewish. So yeah, own your shit, you know, for good and for bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it becomes like, okay, actually really bad, it's like you also have their rival teams. It's from Rotterdam, and they start chanting like Hamas, Hamas, Jews to the gas. Like you see, and then yeah, like I don't know if it results into that. What are your thoughts about that? Or have you? Is this like known in like Israeli society or like?
You know, It's interesting because I think Israelis in general are less sensitive towards anti-Semitism than diaspora Jews. I think maybe because there's a very like tough macho mentality in Israel, but also we feel protected, right? We're not a minority here, so we're less sensitive towards hate. But you know, I'd say it's understandable why saying what's the slogan?
Yeah, it's like Hamas, Joden aan het gas. It's
Hamas, Jews to the gas. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's offensive, right? Like they're calling for genocide of the Jews in a way that already happened to us. So yeah, I mean that's a fucked up thing to say. What's ironic about it is those people strengthen Jewish identity and legitimize Zionism, right? You know, the justification for Zionism, generally speaking, is that we need a place where we can ensure our own security. And then many people say, what do you mean? You can be safe anywhere. But then you'll see even in the Netherlands, which is a relatively peaceful country, you have people in the stadium calling for Jews to be gassed. And again, that's just like a stadium chant. It doesn't mean that the Netherlands is in any way close to gassing Jews. But I mean, just the fact that sentiment can exist and people can say it, even as a joke, very much legitimizes Zionism and strengthens Jewish identity. So that's the ironic part about their chant.
Yeah. I'm wondering is there someone else waiting or other questions you want to do first?
No, well, I want to get to some chat audience questions, but
yeah, if you want, I can leave and like.
Did you have something else?
Oh no, I have like 10 minutes if you want.
If you have final thoughts, feel free to share them. I very much appreciated your insight.
I actually had an experience because in high school class we do get taught about the Holocaust quite a lot, and I remember this experience of like this one kid. I was like, it was like we were all like 13. He was very young, and we were talking about like Jews and blah blah blah, and if any family members, and people started bragging about how their granddad or their assistants, whatever. And then there's this one guy who was just like yelling at me because I have a very Jewish like surname, like something like, "Oh, Hitler should have gassed your granddad." And the teacher's just there and like didn't say anything. And to be fair, at the time I didn't think it was weird because I grew up in a city a little bit outside of Amsterdam. Like it's very close, but it's a bit more lower class. So we actually have a lot of like Moroccan immigrants in my class and Turkish people. You know, and obviously there isn't like someone gonna say something about like, you know, about that. And like even a teacher not doing it, it was kind of surprising. But yeah,
that's messed up.
Like, yeah, and it's also a weird personal thing because I also I'm not Jewish, you get what I mean? But it is like more, it's also personal because it's about someone I personally like grandchildren from, you get what I mean? So
yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think Aliyah is like the thing for me, but it's a little bit like of a mixed feeling, a bit odd.
No, I mean
it's more political than it is like it's more political, social than it is like identity.
Right. Well, first of all, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Kids can be nasty, huh? And you know it's the teacher's job to stop bullying. Especially when it's harmful. It's like so harmful like that. So it's kind of fucked up. But yeah, you know, haters gonna hate. You still seem like you turned out to be like a great individual. So I don't think that hater had too much impact on you.
No, I don't really like. To be fair, it's more like, yeah, I don't know. It's I do see a problem with like I don't know, because most people their parents are directly from those countries, so they do carry some kind of like prejudice or hate, and these people are like in lower class neighborhoods together, grouped up. This hate is like echo chambering, and
for sure,
I don't know, it's like even the children coming, and I don't know. I don't want to be like, oh, close the borders as well, but it's also like there used to be like 200,000 Jews living here, and now there's only 10,000, like before and after the Holocaust. Like,
right,
that's like insane. You get what I mean? That's like an entire like culture, population almost like wiped.
Yeah. I've seen Jews express like sadness over Europeans express sadness over the fact that the Jews have left. Like I've seen people make that case before. Yeah.
Well, 80% was guessed, and then the other like 50% of the 20% left. So
Left. Okay. And what's left is 10K.
Yeah, and then that's like slowly leaving as well because of these incidents. Like there's schools being guarded like 24/7. There's like we have these little stones that say the family's name in front of the houses that have been like killed or like murdered.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and they always get like spit on, scratched on, stuff like that. And it's like you don't see it directly. There's no one like gonna punch you, stab you, whatever.
Interesting.
But it is a very uncomfortable feeling, like in some ways. Even at work here, people like, oh, about the Israel, well, like recently, when it's like 2 months ago, I think, when the conflict with the Sheikh Jarrah thing, that was like a couple months ago. Yeah, everyone was talking about it, and like I don't want to like get political because I'm in the minority of my opinion. I have like different views in terms of that. And more like I've listened to your podcast a lot. I have similar views like yours. You've kind of changed mine a little bit. It's from 2 states, so like what you're talking about federation, and people like I heard like my direct manager say like, oh, someone was like, oh, what is this? And it's like, she was saying, oh, yeah, how would you feel about someone just under your house, kick you out, and like put you in prison? And it was just that was just her explaining the conflict in like 2 sentences. And I was just like,
right.
I'm also not in a position to say something because it's also my manager. But it's also
send him to the channel. Let him watch some of these discussions. That's the best way.
No, it's in the Netherlands, by the way. It's in Almere, small city, 200,000 people, close to Amsterdam. But I do work in Amsterdam. It's a very open-minded culture.
Yeah, I've been to Amsterdam a few times. I actually really like that city. It's a cool city. Yeah. Cool, Jesse. Well, thanks a lot for sharing. I appreciate your perspective.
I didn't get too much about the personal stuff. I don't know.
No. I mean, we like to hear this stuff. It makes for it's good content. It's inspiring. I think this is what people want to hear. So I appreciate you being open to sharing, and feel free to hop back on next time we do one of these call-in shows.
Sounds good, man. Okay.
Awesome.
Have a good night,
Talk
guys.
soon. You too. Cool. So we're gonna wrap it up soon. We'll do some more questions. Maybe we get a few more super chats up in here. Let's see. Okay. Septa asks, "What happens to my eye?" I don't know. Something wrong with my eye? No, my eye's fine. Maybe I have bags under them because I'm a bit tired. But no, nothing that I know of. Let's see. George says, "Gotta go." Thanks, Adar. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Okay, Danny H. You go, have you attended a Beitar Jerusalem game? Bro, look, I like you. I like your presence here. I appreciate your input, but can we not get into this shit? Me saying that, like, people in European sports stadium is anti-Semitic, that has nothing to do with Beitar Yerushalayim. Yeah, they're also racist and say disgusting shit, but why can't you accept that there's hateful people without bringing up that there's some hate in Israel? What you're doing is not so different than what many like of the Hasbara guys do, and whenever you'll bring up like a soldier abusing a Palestinian, like, oh, but what about Palestinians doing this, and this? That's what you're doing, bro. Not like everything needs to be brought back to like what you're upset about, and I understand Israel-Palestine is important to you. But we can talk about anti-Semitism in Europe without you feeling the need to bring up Beitar Yerushalayim as if I'm ignoring them. No, what the Beitar sports fans do is disgusting. It should be condemned. What many sports fans in Europe do is disgusting and should be condemned. Like I don't see what the issue here is. Honestly, one of the most annoying things is when people like misinterpret or misrepresent what you say. It's so tiring, like we're just making an effort to like engage in good faith and be honest, and someone will like not listen to what you say and just say something completely different, right? It's one of the most tiring and annoying things somebody can do. Honestly, I think like one of the most important things we could teach in school is like critical thinking, effective communication, understanding cognitive biases, learning the logical fallacies. This to me is more important than math and history and stuff like that. You know, they often say you won't use the math you learn, but it teaches you how to think. Well, learning cognitive biases, logical fallacies, effective communication teaches you how to think much better than algebra and geometry. I'm sorry. And if we were to learn those things, and you could perhaps learn both, but if you need to prioritize one, it should be that. And if we were to teach this in schools, like, you'd see that our conversations would be so much more productive, and you'd be able to talk about hateful stuff in Europe without somebody talking about Beitar Yerushalayim, as if that's like, as if that has any relevance. Danny goes, there are more than 1 million Israeli Jews who are not Jewish per halakha law, so you don't apply Jewish law, international and moral law. So specifically, that law is Israeli law, right? Israel made a law that says, in order to make Aliyah, this is the requirement. If you meet that requirement, you can make Aliyah. So that's the law. Good seeing. Yeah, we're just wrapping up. It's a long one today.
You're wrapping up as well,
Yeah. Laila Tov. That's our friends from before, our Palestinian friends. Silver 42 goes, you are using your in Israel privilege right now, Adar. So I don't know what that's in relation to, but it's possible I was doing that. I don't know if you're also saying this seriously or as a joke, but there's privileges to living here without a doubt. I feel blessed. Not blessed in the religious sense, but more in the sense of deep sense of gratitude. Any final questions? Adam asks, how was my Midburn? Go to the beginning of the chat. I started it by talking about Midburn. I gave like a 10-minute pitch about the burn and how it goes, and what it's all about. Suna Naza goes, why doesn't Israel give up North Israel, South Lebanon, disputed water borders to get over with it? You know, I didn't even know that there's any dispute on the northern border. I know the Golan Heights are disputed, but is there a dispute over the northern border with Lebanon? Honestly, that's new to me. Send a link. You never know. I would say if it was as simple as giving up something that would make peace with Hezbollah, then we should probably do it. But I don't think Hezbollah, I don't think their stance is just a border dispute. I think they don't recognize any form of Israel's existence. So I don't think it's as simple as that. Sept Adam goes, Midburn sign still seems on your face. Interesting. Does anybody else see it? What is it? Is it a glow? Do I look tired? Do I look different? Honestly, I feel it took me a few days to come back to reality. Like, it's very hard to go from Midburn to back to the real world, but I'm feeling back at it. I'm feeling like sharp and focused. Took some time though. What else we got? So look, what we have going on next week. We're meant to have Alan Dershowitz on the show. It's meant to be next Thursday, but his matchup kind of fell through, so we're still looking for a debate partner for him. If we can't find one in time, we might postpone it, but we will have Alan Dershowitz on sometime. Let me know who you'd like to see on with the Dersh. The week after that, I'm going to have a debate with Adam Green. Adam Green is BitChute. Has a big BitChute channel, widely considered anti-Semitic, although he doesn't claim to be. We're going to have a discussion about that. We'll get to the bottom of it. Rudell's good seeing you here. Thank you for joining us. If it's your first, it's my first time seeing you in the chat, so I hope you come back. Sept Adam, you say I look tired? Yeah, maybe I'm a little tired. Maybe a little bit. Suna says that it's not, the conflict's not with Hezbollah, but with the Lebanese government. So I need to know more about that, like, water dispute you're talking about. But I think Israel and the Lebanese government can actually work out their differences. I don't think that's too much of an issue. I think Hezbollah very much is the challenge here. Guys, one last time, we have a community BBS. BBS is kind of like Reddit, but built using blockchain technology. You can earn money for making posts, and it's more less or more censorship resistant. It's like a double negative. It's more censorship resistant. Come in, share your thoughts, tell us how you're feeling. You actually earn like real money for posting. There's like a whole built-in token economy. You earn cryptocurrency, which you could cash out for fiat. I'm going to share it. Join the BBS. Share your thoughts. Tell us what you're thinking. You also get like money just for signing up. You can't withdraw the money because obviously then people would just sign up and withdraw. You get money for signing up so you could buy other people's posts just to get the economy running. The money you could withdraw is money you earn. So it's kind of like, imagine you walk in a casino, you get $100. You can't convert that $100 to cash, but if you use that 100 and you earn more, whatever you earn above the 100 is yours. So that's it. It's similar here. So come join us. Getting more comments about that I'm a little stuffy. Yeah, I actually was a little sick. I haven't been sick in like 5 years, but at Midburn I had a little throat nose thing. Let's see. Posting this again, Gerfot goes, Adar, have you ever tried to have Palestinian American or Canadian, British, etc. academic on the show? Someone like Rashid Khalidi, Joseph Mossad, etc. So actually, we emailed Rashid Khalidi yesterday to try to get him to debate Dershowitz. So that's one of the people we're targeting for Dershowitz. I'm actually not familiar with Joseph Mossad, but I'll write that down. We could try to reach him. Anybody who, like, if you have guest suggestions, send it to me. Preferably not in chat. Like, reach out to me on Instagram, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, email, and any Telegram, any platform you want. Reach out to me. Let me know who you want to see on the show, and we'll try to reach out to them. Danny goes, it's a natural gas dispute. Okay, I've heard of the natural gas dispute. I'm not so familiar with the details of it, but a lot of money, natural gas. That's going to be a tricky one to solve. But I think we could find a way. But again, I think the bigger problem is, Hezbollah is gaining more and more power in Lebanon, and they don't recognize any form of Israel's existence. So I think that's really the bigger issue than the gas dispute. Soon asks, Adar, do you do call-in shows weekly? It gives better platform where you don't know who you'll get to talk to. No, not weekly. We've done this a few times. I think we'll do at least once a month. If they're extremely popular, we could do more. Yeah, soon. I see you sent me links. Well, wherever you send them to my social media platforms. Learn Think says, I'm going to try to hit up a University of British Columbia professor to talk to you. I'd like to hear the discussion. Sure. Connect us. Sean Fiddle goes, do you think Reform converts are legit? Yeah, I do. I'm like, I don't believe in the Jewish religion. I'm not Jewish by religion. My Judaism is more of being of the Jewish people. But so obviously I'm going to have a more moderate opinion on this than many religious Jews, but yeah, sure. What I do take issue with is there's some Reform converts who, and I don't even know if they did like an official reform conversion, but they spew shit that's pretty anti-Semitic, and then they're like, yeah, but I'm Jewish. Like, they think they could get away with it, and they use them being Jewish as like extra oppression points, because you know how very much in the West, like, we've incentivized oppression and people want as many oppressed identities. So I think I object to people converting to Jewish just so they could pretend to be even more oppressed than they otherwise were. It's not healthy to want to be oppressed. Like, we shouldn't incentivize oppression. We should incentivize empowerment, right? Like, and so much of being oppressed is a state of mind. It's not a physical reality. Let me give you an example. You could have a black woman, let's say Chloe Valdary, for example, regardless of what you feel about her perspective, but Chloe Valdary is a black woman who does not feel oppressed. She feels empowered. She feels grateful for everything that she has. Then you could have a white man, right? And the way, you know, many on the left, or let's call it the social justice oriented left, the woke left, would say a white man is the top tier privilege, and a black woman, not only black, but also a woman, that's like at the bottom. But you have some white men that feel like they're oppressed. They perhaps they're libertarians. They feel like the government's oppressive. They need to pay taxes, vaccine passports, whatever. Like, they're genuinely feel oppressed. So how is it you could have a situation where a white man and a black woman, one feels oppressed, the white man feels oppressed, and the black woman feels empowered? It just shows so much of our feeling of oppression is a subjective notion and not a physical reality. And the fact that so much of it is a subjective notion means we should like have a society that incentivizes people to want to be empowered, right? That makes people feel empowered and in control of their destiny, and not exactly the opposite, which is a mindset of like victimhood and oppression, which very much what many social justice activists are incentivizing today. So I very much object to that culture. I consider myself an activist. I very much care about social justice issues. But one of the single best ways to to elevate disenfranchised people is for them to feel like they're in control of their destiny. And the current narrative around social justice is very much to do the opposite. It's to tell them they're powerless. There's nothing they could do. The government needs to save them. The white man needs to save them. Like, this is just not a healthy worldview. It's not giving people the tools they need to be able to rise up and make something of themselves. Again, you need systemic change as well. There's only so much you could do given certain environments. If you're very poor and don't have access to the basic needs, then it's very hard to make something of yourself. So again, like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That certainly has a limit. The solution to elevating disenfranchised communities is them having a positive set of beliefs that help them elevate themselves, and systemic change that gives them the tools to get out of poverty or an oppressive situation. So you need both. The right generally talks about the self-empowerment. The left talks about the systemic change. In reality, both are very important. I wish we better knew how to reconcile these two things. And learn, think, goes, own your shit, people, and have empathy and compassion for those around you. I agree. Beautiful. Cool. We're signing off. We're signing off, friends. If you want, I'm done for the day. I'm pretty tired, but I'll put a link to the Discord as well. We could do an after party in the lounge. Click the Discord link on the left-hand side. It says lounge. Click it. You're connected. You'll be connected via voice. You don't need to speak. You could just listen, but we could do a little after party. And see you on BBS as well. Next week, it might be Dersh. It might be somebody else. I'm not sure. But what's for sure is November 18th, me and Adam Green are going to have a nice discussion. I have a feeling it's going to be one of the more interesting conversations we've had on this platform. Much love, friends.